Since 2013, Venezuela has been in the midst of one of the most severe economic, political and social crises in modern history. Millions have fled the country, and those who remain are grappling with extreme poverty, food shortages, inflation and the collapse of essential services. To understand the crisis, we need to go back to 1999, when Hugo Chavez, a former army officer, came to power. Chavez introduced Chavismo, a political ideology based on socialism, anti-imperialism and wealth redistribution. With Venezuela's vast oil reserves, his government used oil profits to fund social programs and subsidies, initially lifting many out of poverty. But over time, Chavez's policies began to drain the economy, while corruption and inefficiencies took root. In 2013, Chavez passed away, leaving his successor, Nicolas Maduro, to carry on his legacy. However, things would soon take a drastic turn for the worse. In 2014, global oil prices plummeted, and Venezuela's economy, heavily reliant on oil exports, began to unravel. With no diversification and a reliance on oil revenue, the country plunged into an economic tailspin. Inflation skyrocketed. At its peak in 2018, inflation in Venezuela hit a staggering 1,000,000%. As prices surged, basic goods like medicine, food, and toiletries became increasingly scarce. Millions of Venezuelans could no longer afford even the essentials. Hospitals lacked medicine, and malnutrition became widespread. By 2017, the political crisis deepened. Maduro's government faced growing opposition, accused of authoritarianism and human rights violations. Protests erupted in the streets, calling for his resignation. In 2019, opposition leader Juan Guaido declared himself interim president, challenging Maduro's rule. While some countries, including the US, recognized Guaido, Maduro held on to power, backed by military and allies like Russia and China. The political gridlock only worsened the crisis. As the economy continued to deteriorate, millions of Venezuelans fled the country in what became the largest migration crisis in Latin American history. By 2023, more than 7 million Venezuelans had left, seeking refuge in neighboring countries like Brazil, Colombia, Peru and Ecuador. Despite international sanctions on the Maduro regime, efforts to provide aid have continued. However, the political climate remains tense. Maduro's government insists that external interference is a threat to Venezuela's sovereignty, while critics argue that the government's mismanagement has caused the country's downfall. Today, Venezuela remains in crisis, with no immediate resolution in sight. Inflation has somewhat stabilized, but the economy is far from recovered. While oil prices have risen again, Venezuela's oil industry is in disarray due to years of neglect and sanctions. Political tensions persist, and many Venezuelans are left with few options but to continue enduring hardship or seek a better life abroad.